So I had this other epiphany really quickly about being clear in communication. The reason why there is, and I did cover this earlier, but the reason why there is so much misunderstandings is because there are people who are not very clear in their communication. Or if they are clear in their communication, I will take that information and I will make a decision on whether or not their communication is what I need in my world. So, you know, what I'm working on is how to be clear, more clear in my communication, and then vice versa. Hey, Kathy, because here's the thing. Why do I block people? Because they are making either a very clear communication that they really do not believe in Jilly Juice, and then I will make a decision whether or not they belong on my Facebook. Other people will have a thought in their mind and they say one or two words, or they say something, and then and if I misinterpret and I block them, it means that they weren't clear in their communication. So how can we be very clear in our communication to where if we get surprised, it's because we have to take responsibility of what we're saying or not saying and how that lands in somebody else's world? And so this is what I am working on now. So, as I am moving through my progress of healing, now I am very focused on my communication. What am I saying? What am I conveying? What kind of response do I want from people? What kind of response do I want from myself? And so when someone tells me something and then I take it as something, right? And I have to interpret it based upon, so if you're not being clear in your world and then I interpret your information wrong, that's not my fault. It's the person who's communicating's fault, because they weren't clear on their communication. They weren't clear on the intent. They weren't clear on a lot of things. So, and then, then you have to figure out, okay, well, if it's just some random person coming on and just, making assumptions, okay, that's different. But if you are working with a bunch of people and you know who's going to read it, then, it's incumbent upon you to be clear in how it is you word things so you don't create a misunderstanding. And that's for me too. So that's why I have people very, very, very afraid to comment on my Facebook lest I misinterpret what they say. So if you cannot be clear in your communication to make sure that you let me know that you are in 100% support, then I'm going to assume something. If I don't know you well enough, I'm going to assume something, because that's all I have is the data is what you're giving me. And I'm going to read your tone. I'm going to read your words you're going to say, and I'm going to take it for face value. And then I'm going to make a decision on that. And if you don't want me to delete you off my Facebook, then you make sure that your communication is very clear, that it's in 100% support. You're not debating, you're not refuting, you're not trying to bring in other protocols, which is everything that I've talked about. Please do not do. And if you haven't been privy to those, requests, then you don't even communicate at all. You watch the room before you jump in. So yeah, this is good, because like anybody's Facebook, no matter who it is, you be clear in your intent, and that way you're not surprised by the outcome. See, today I had an example of being surprised because I didn't have all the information. I didn't read the full article. I didn't read the full whatever. And so guess what? I reacted. And then guess what? The article is actually something totally different than what it is that I was expecting, right? So it is being a good surprise and there's being a bad surprise. So this is the next level of understanding humanity through a very clear gut and a clear mind, is how do you communicate to everybody to where it lands? And it's understanding your audience. Yes, that's a major component, especially with public speaking. It's considering your audience, who they are, assuming all of their objections, already knowing what they are, and then overcoming. And that's like sales 101, is overcoming objections. And I learned that in sales a long time ago. But now it's on a grander scale. It's now dealing with a totally different component of things, such as the human body, such as the fears that are out there, such as all the things that are in the mainstream media and the alternative mainstream media and the conspiracy world and the truth world and all of that. So now when you have a wider audience, okay, then you have to consider everybody, which is basically everybody in the world, if you're trying to reach everybody. And that's hard, right? Some of you only have a very small audience, so you only have to consider a small group of people, which is really easy. So that means you can tailor the way you speak about something to only those people. So, you know, so then if you can get things to land in your current world, like in your small world of your family or your friends, and they get it and they understand where you're going with this Jilly Juice or whatever it is that you're doing, then you can start working on other you know, groups and other pools of people. And then also it's understanding what goes on in other worlds too, understanding what the questions they have. Yeah, absolutely, Diojo. It's being aware of yourself and others, and you can communicate. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, this is the ride that I'm going through. And so that's why I try, you know, that's why whenever I have a misunderstanding with somebody, whether it's a friend or it's just some stranger, I try to figure out what was that misunderstanding? Why did I take it this way? Why did, you know, why were they like, oh, with you, you know, and I break it down. I pick it apart. And then I figure, okay, what, so, you know, if someone misunderstands me, then where was I lacking in my communication? So it's even being more aware of, it's even being beyond being aware of yourself, because you can be aware of yourself, but you can be so aware of yourself that you're not even aware of the other people. And maybe you can be aware of other people too, but there's something else even more to that. It's how would I say this? How would I, to piggyback off of what you said, Diojo, is that where are you responsible in your communication? Where was the breakdown in that communication? And that's what I'm trying to say is, where can we figure out where we're responsible, why it is that the information landed this way, which was not your intention? How can we always make the mark? How can we stop missing the mark? And that's your, so really, that's where it comes down to, is if you're trying to help your friends, and sometimes, you know, you can't, but maybe it's just the fact that you can't is because you haven't presented it in a way. I don't know. I mean, when you're always striving to figure out where you're responsible for why it is your information doesn't land, then you're always striving to be better all the time. You're not saying, well, it's their fault. No, you're always striving to figure out how can you better your communication. Yeah, some of it is some of their responsibility to be able to receive it. And some people don't have the mental capacity to receive the information. But maybe you haven't, you know, tailored your communication to reach them. Maybe you're speaking at a different level than they can understand. So maybe you need to kind of figure out how to tailor your speech to be able to reach a person of a different IQ level, right? I'm not saying dumb yourself down, but some people, you know, have a lot of mutations, and you're speaking above them or speaking in a way that triggers them, then they're not going to be able to listen. And so how can you reach them? So that's the thing, is how do we reach every single body without trying to figure out, okay, are their biochemistry the same as mine? And if their biochemistry isn't the same as mine, then they're just asked out, because then that cuts out a huge segment of the population. Right now, I'm probably speaking way above some people's understanding. And so maybe I need to learn how to speak in a way that will reach the ones that have the brain fog, as well as reach the ones that don't have as much brain fog. So there's where, you know, I, you know, need to work on, and all of us too. You know, sometimes we don't need to just speak to only our peers that understand us. Sometimes we need to speak to people that don't. How do we do that? What's missing in what I'm doing? And I know what's missing is because I triggered the politics 6 months ago. I mentioned procreation categories. You know, I had my own reactions from my parasites and all of that, right? So I'm aware of what created all of this misunderstanding, and I am solely responsible. I know I'm solely responsible from reacting from a defensive standpoint. So now, you know, now that I'm aware of that, you know, and I don't necessarily need to apologize, because no, we do the things that we do based upon all the information we have at the time. The more information that we bring in, the better our communication is. So yes, you can be aware, but it's also about how, you know, how much information you have. And then what your intention is. Do you only want to help people that are relatively smart, that have some kind of education? And then you're just going to say, you know, I completely eradicate, you know, the other population that doesn't have that capacity. Yeah, and yeah, I watched a little bit of Diojo's video about ayahuasca. And so, you know, so yeah, so this is what I am working on, is how do I make my information land in everybody's world, and I'm not discriminating and not saying, okay, well, you don't have the capacity, so you won't be able to understand. And then that does put people off. And I've done that. I've said that because it is in reaction to people's reaction to me. So it is like, what is it, a mirror? So when I act or say something, it's going to trigger somebody that's going to react, and then it's back and forth and nobody gets anywhere. So how can I speak to everybody's listening, even the trolls, even the people who really hate me? And maybe there is no way for them to get it because they have a different intention. Maybe, you know, they have a whole different, I don't know. I can only make assumptions. But maybe they need to have people in their audience doing the protocol and saying, hey, Jeff, hey, PewDiePie, hey, you know, other troll that is focusing on me, Jeff Miles. Yeah, Diojo. People can only understand something so far. It's a good thing to understand how much. Emotionally, people aren't very well developed normally and can't usually understand such complicated and serious subjects. But yeah, how do we explain better? Well, we know that this is, we cater to their baser instincts. They do want to live. Even the ones that are not emotionally developed, they do want to live. Okay, and I think sometimes they may have to reach rock bottom. I don't know. That's what I'm working on. And maybe it's just staying, you know, consistent in the message, and staying consistent in everything that I'm doing, and really just, you know, I keep staying out there, because eventually, you know, because even my trolls are fans, they are still absorbing this information. They may not like it because, you know, who wants to deal with pain? I mean, pain sucks. But maybe they will understand down the road, when they get tired of being in pain, they realize, okay, I'm in pain every day, then how bad could this be? If I'm already dying on a death trajectory, then, you know, she's explaining the nutrient effects in the cabbage and kale. We know that cabbage and kale is good for us. We know that, okay, so the salt thing, they're trying to work that out. And, you know, and the balancing force of salt is water. And when you're thirsty, you drink water. So there goes that fear. So, you know, so it may just be the fact that I need to have more time out there in the public eye, keep reiterating the same information, because it is about redundancy. We keep repeating the same thing. It's the same thing in the allopathic and the holistic, and in education. They're always repeating the same thing. It's called programming. So we just have to be consistent in everything that we're doing and repeating the same thing over again, and in different ways. Because sometimes you say it in a different way, it's going to reach this crowd. So you say it in this way, it's going to reach this crowd. You say it in a different way, it's going to reach this crowd. It's like knowing your audience. Now, if I were to go, you know, back to Infinite Man Summit and speak to the same crowd, how would I do it? I don't even know how I'd speak, considering, you know, I bombed that speech, but that's okay. That was a learning experience for me. But how would I do it? I mean, I figure out the crowd is a bunch of young gentlemen who don't want to die. They want to be successful. They want to be, you know, awesome, focused individuals that want to make money, and they want to date too and have sex. Well, you know, women are attracted to men that are successful and are able. Women don't like lugs. They don't want to pick up somebody and try to, you know, get them going. Some women are, you know, are like that, you know, and will do that. And other women are like, they want to see the knight in shining armor. And so when a man is focused, when a man, you know, makes time for her, when a man is very, you know, very considerate, and they're well balanced, that's attractive. So that's how I could have approached the Infinite Man Summit. But I wasn't fully aware of myself, because you're right. Yes, I was in defense mode. I wasn't aware of really them. I had an idea. And then I was trying to fit in all this information because it was all fresh in my mind, all the stuff that I was giving to the OAG. And I never really considered the audience because I wasn't aware of every, you know, I didn't have all the information that I have today. Now I understand about hormones and how they drive us. Now I understand about reproduction, what it actually means. So it's just more data. So the more data that you have, the better you are in positioning the information to land in so many different worlds, because you're aware of how they are receiving it. You're aware, first of all, of what they're dealing with, for one. You're aware that some of them are Jehovah's Witnesses. Others are in, I don't know, born again Christian. Others are Hindi. Others are Muslim. So you're speaking to all these different listings and trying to figure out how to reach them through their filters. And that can be difficult because it means you have to understand them. And if we already have a prejudice against Islam, then there's no way you're going to reach an Islamic or Muslim person, because you already have a prejudice. So you're not going to find a way to work with them. So that's the key to being, I guess, a really good speaker and reaching everybody, is understanding everyone that you're trying to help, not just a specific group of people. I'm not just trying to speak to the Messianic Hebrews. I'm not trying to speak to only awoke people. I'm trying to mainstream this to everybody. And that's a huge feat, because it means that I have to understand everybody in the world, which means that I have to then let go of my prejudices, no matter what they are. And that's peeling back the layers in of itself. So yeah, if you can't even, get your audience, your group of people to understand Jilly Juice, then there's no freaking way that you're going to be able to take this to the open world. And so that's, so that's what I'm working on, is trying to figure out how to make this land. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away. But that's the things, that's the awakenings that I'm seeing, is that, yeah, there are prejudices. I do have prejudices against the holistic market. I do have prejudices against certain things because my anger around them, because of their lack of understanding. But then, they didn't have a time, and I'm not really working with them because I'm repelling them, right? Because of my attacking, right? But I'm also trying to wake up people too, to say, hey, we shouldn't be following these people, but then why shouldn't we? So, so these are the things that I'm working on myself. So I went from one extreme to the other, and now I got to figure out how to then speak to their listening. And it's difficult, because yes, I'm working for my biochemistry. I'm trying to make points, and sometimes my points aren't always positive. And sometimes I do rattle people. Sometimes I do trigger them. So, so now it's like, okay, now that I've said and done this stuff, how can I now figure out how we can bridge the gap? Because now people know, okay, but things had to be said. I have to point out that certain people out there that are bloggers who are overweight and obese should not be giving health advice. I've already said it. It's already been said. I don't have to really go over that again. We already know that, that the cannabis world is not really to heal you. It's really to anesthetize you. I don't have to keep harping on that same point. I can make a point and I have it be just one major point, but my real overall predominant point is that we definitely can tap into immortality as long as we have the right conditions. And that is the nutrients, and that is keeping our hormones at bay, and that is understanding that our world is run by hormones, and hormones actually degrade the body. And when you're always inducing a hormone, then you're living your reality through that hormone, and then it turns into addictions, and then it turns into then your death trajectory. And then when someone says, oh, then where does cancer, disease, and chronic illness come into it? That's basically the aging process. It's just there's different severities and of how fast or how slow you die. But cancer, disease, and chronic illness is the aging process with different severity levels. And they have names for it because it's just how our world works. It's the market. You give a name, you give a word or a name to something, you create a world, you create a market. So, so that's what I'm now working on. It's like, okay, I've taken from one extreme to the other. Now, how do I get to the middle? So there's my project. There's what I'm working on, and then for you guys, be clear in your communication. And that's why I have everybody scared of talking, because I don't want you to just be throwing up, whatever you're saying. I want you to really, truly think about what you say And if I say that I'm really done with the activism, done with the anti-government, done with the anarchists, done with all this, then there's no reason to, you know, still come from that point of view and have it be obvious on my Facebook. So when I say, hey, you know, what is the dreams for your future? Do you see yourself in 10 or different 15 careers? And then you say, no, I don't see anything, because you're against the government, you're against the infrastructure, you're against corporations, you're against taxes. Then I already feel that that's where you're coming from, and it's not going to be a place for me to deal with you. So I'm going to let you go. I want people to understand there is a place for infrastructure. There is a place for law enforcement, because we have idiots out there that do stupid stuff. We need somebody to make sure that they're kept in line, so we don't have people running amok, victimizing other people. Okay, so there is a place for government. How much government is based upon how mutated you are. So if you are always violating the laws, then yeah, you're gonna have government up your ass 24/7. But if you're actually being good and you're abiding by the laws of the land and the laws of your immune system, then you're not gonna have government or health insurance up your ass, literally, pathic, right? So yeah, I believe in small government, but that's relative to you. You're gonna be the one that's going to determine whether or not how much government you have in your life. And that's based upon your biochemistry. So if your biochemistry is all messed up, then you're going to have government in your life all messed up, messing with you. But if your biochemistry is relatively balanced and you're a well-balanced person, believe me, you're not going to have government up your ass at all. So right there will tell you. So those of you who are anti-government or little government, well then yeah, then behave and such, so you don't elicit government to be in your world. You know, you still got to pay to play in our society. Nothing is for free in life. Even if you're a caveman, you still have to go and create energy to make a fire and plant your, you know, go hunting for, you know, nuts and berries and for animals, and, you know, making your clothing from the fur from the woolly mammoth or whatever out there, raccoons or something, right? Okay, so there's nothing for free in life. You're going to have to expend energy to be able to survive. Even animals have to expend energy. My dog, she earns her keep by protecting and barking when she hears a noise. And Diojo says, great progress. I'd say I'd have to go start listening to these again. Hugs. Yeah, hugs back to you, Diojo. I know you've been doing your stuff, and that's fine. I'm glad to see you. But yeah, every animal, every human, everything on this earth has to expend energy to be able to live. Nothing is for free. Those that say, oh, we shouldn't work at all, everything should be given to us, that's called a parasite. We have too many parasites in our society. We don't need any more. There's a lot of parasites in the truther community. Let's get our system well balanced to understand. It's all about, you know, giving the equal exchange of energies. But try not to induce so many hormones all the time, because when you're always living on oxytocin, the love hormone, or always adrenaline, or always, you know, anxious, or your lack of a hormone, lack of serotonin and dopamine, and all, then that's not the way to be. You're always in constant, like, you know, if you're not relaxed, and when you're not relaxed, you're creating antibodies and it's attacking your body. So you don't want that. You really want to be in a relaxed state. And then when you need your hormones, you get it. Okay? All right. Y'all have a good one. Watch my videos from earlier today and last night, because Diojo, you'll like my last night's video. Monica Silva says, the best way to teach people is by using illustrations, using situations they're familiar with. You're very good at it. Yes, thank you, because every time I see somebody come through, I see who you are and I speak to it. Because I know most of you for the most part. I know where you're coming from. I've read your profiles. You've interacted with me. So I know your background, and then I can speak to it. What's going to be difficult is when I go to a conference where I don't know anybody. So I'm going to have to assume that I know what I'm, you know, who I'm speaking to. And I'll get a little bit of background of who these people are. You know, they're in the engineering industry, they're in the allopathic industry, they're in this. So I have to speak to that listening, you know, I'm like, oh gosh, okay. I know all of you doctors mean well, and you were told to do this, but what if it was really this way and not this way, you know? Yes, Kevin, how did you know? Yeah, Kevin's he's gonna give you a teaser. He told me a revelation. I'm not even gonna repeat. I'm gonna let him say it because Kevin has a thinking mind. And I know also Kevin was trying to figure out if he tells me something, am I just going to go and blast it all over Facebook and take it as it's my idea? No, I'm not that kind of person. I want Kevin to have some glory. I want Kevin to really create his own position and really know that he can stand on his two feet. He's not my, my coattails, whatever. Kevin is a thinking guy. He understands what's going on. So I want him to divulge because he's had some great revelations. Some amazing revelations. He's awesome. Okay. So Kevin, I give so much respect to, and I will never, ever stifle. Now, when someone says that we should be, we should collaborate with this guy or collaborate with this guy, then I'm going to want to see some kind of integration and figure out why it is we should. So, when I completely reject somebody's suggestion is because I don't see how Julie Juice is going to integrate with them. Okay. So, so that's why Kevin is understanding now why it is that I will reject things and why it is like, oh yeah, I love it because you've found a way to integrate this and this is great and I love it. And that's what I look for is how can anybody that's out there that's doing whatever protocol they're doing, how can they incorporate what I'm doing and is what they're doing undermining what I'm doing? That's the key thing. That's what I want to see is if I'm going to collaborate with anybody, is their protocol going to undermine this? Is it even necessary? But if they have a protocol that is somehow it makes sense with mine, then yeah, I'm all for it. And Kevin's going to put it out there. So good for him. All right, I'm going to go do my thing, but love you guys. You guys are awesome. Okay, bye.